They tryna tell me that I'm good without you. Just stay with the things that make you feel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spot Real Talk. My name is Tiara.
I'm Lawanda.
And Tiffany.
And I'm Ron.
And today we are here again to talk about Queen Sugar, Season 5, Episode 3. If you hang tight, we'll be right back with you.
Baby, I know where the last one burnt you. Know that ain't cool. Wanna show you how I'm nothing like him. Swear that's the truth. You can't trust that alone.
All right, we are back. And like I said, we're talking Queen Sugar. This is the third episode of the 5th season. It's titled Late April 2020. And this week we are picking up right where things left off last week. The whole COVID outbreak, it seems like it's actually progressed a little further because you hear the news reports really like how the virus has ramped up and it's starting to affect more and more states. And then I heard something about like some of the violence that was going on against Asian communities in a news clip that Prosper was watching. So it's really just like reliving that time period again.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part of it all, watching this show, because it's deja vu all over again, and and it kind of makes it's hard to go back. This COVID is something you only want to experience once, and I know probably until we all old and gray, at least you guys, we'll be watching COVID drama probably until 50 years from now. But in terms of Queen Sugar, we're just reliving what we've already been through. But it's cool. One thing I do like about what I'm seeing, and I have to say, my favorite two characters are Ralph Angel and Darla. I mean, they just got this.
We could have guessed that.
They just have this bottom-up mentality, even though they're low, they're on the lower scale, but they're always thinking up. And we can get to that later, but I just had to throw out my two favorite characters.
I mean, we can talk about them. I mean, they had a big role this episode. Their scenario where we seen last week, Darla was struggling with her job. It seemed like she was preparing for the interview and nervous about it. And things obviously went well because she got the full-time position. But then she just turns around and gets, well, first of all, getting laid off and then furloughed. So that, and the financial pressure that puts on her and Ralph Angel, because he can't even, go through with his harvest and he has to lay off workers too. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to watch because it is like people's lives, and this was like really people's situation and still is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So it was hard to watch the feelings around that, having to struggle to think about how you're going to support your family, even seeing Ralph Angel having to sell his tractor. Mm-hmm. And the way he stepped up this episode, I was so impressed with him.
Yeah. I have to admit.
I was like, the line that he gave to the interviewer. Mm-hmm. When he was interviewing, I was like, "Oh, use that."
Right? I mean, he should have been the one that was coaching Darla for her interview instead of Charlie.
Yeah,
he sold it.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
He said all the right things.
He said, "You're right. I'm a boss, and I know what it's like to be an employee." And I was like, "Ding, ding, ding,"
And he said, "And I just want to help. I want to be. How can I help?" And I was like, "Okay, let me write this down."
Yeah, I mean, he said, "I checked my ego at the door."
I didn't write it down. It's up here. If I ever need a job, that's exactly what I'm going to use, or some fashion.
And the thing is, he's trying to be a provider without, we know that Ralph Angel comes from a checkered past, so he's not resorting to going back to what he did in the very first episode, the pilot, when he robbed the store and everything like that, you could see his growth. He was like, I'm not beyond doing custodial work. Bottom line, he's trying to take care of his family. And the other thing that I liked, it touched on the issue with Blue, working, doing school from home. And I was just reading an article this week about how difficult it has been for a lot of the kids, to work from, do schooling from home, and it's affecting them socially and academically as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because I liked how that conversation between Darla and Blue about who would get to use the laptop, it brought up the conversation that a lot of families had to deal with. It's like the lack of internet access to do, virtual schooling and teleworking. And so, most people, I guess because we live in like this big metropolitan areas, you think like everybody has access to this stuff. And it really is the reality of the situation that a lot of people, even in these big cities, don't have access, and especially, more so in those rural spaces where the connections are spotty, and, those people tend to get left behind, especially in this kind of environment where everything is virtual.
Yeah, and especially if everybody's on at the same time, because you remember, like a lot of times in the beginning, because the kids were in school and everything, even us with Zoom, we had some kinks and stuff and technology challenges. So imagine the whole world is trying to work from home, and the kids are online too. So I know that is challenging too with the internet.
Yeah,
I thought the good thing about the show, in another way to look at it, is that it does kind of memorialize some of the issues that popped up, how people were reacting to it. And it's kind of like you said, it's those unforeseen circumstances. Who would think that the child and the parent would be competing for, time on the internet, both of them needing it, and just raising the issue of how what we thought was, I guess, kind of living in a first world country, all the amenities that we have, that there are certain places where you don't have a safety net. Like, who would think there would be an issue not having access to internet? But they're demanding that your kid be on school online, but they're not providing the tools for you to do that. So
that was a good point.
Yeah, I think what this season is going to do is kind of serve as our memory of how things really were, because we know what will happen is media will try to tell you what this experience was like. So this season is going to serve to be like, no, this is what really happened. This is how our community experienced this.
But I think it also shows, I'm sorry. I think it also shows our country's vulnerabilities too, because as you said, here we are in this first world country, the richest country, in the world, quote unquote. And yet when something catastrophic happens, how do we recover? Can we recover? Can we depend on each other? Can we depend on corporations to do the right things, the most expedient things to get us and help us through? Texas proved that a couple of weeks ago with the storm. I know you live in Texas, but I'm just telling, I'm speaking truth to power.
Yeah.
We keep proving, are we just happy with the press clippings of the United States of America, or are we really the country that we're supposed to be? So Texas, Queen Sugar, they're all really showing just how vulnerable we really are.
Particularly with the food supply, because that conversation about them having to go in and just kind of mix match and, just get what was there. And during COVID, I would notice some of that, but what would always happen is that if you went to Whole Foods, and there's another store here called Central Market, they were always well stocked. Well, when the thing happened a couple of weeks ago with the ice storm, that was the first time I'd ever walked into like a Whole Foods or a Central Market, and they, their shelves were bare. That was the first time I had seen something like that, particularly like the produce section. Mm-hmm. So echoing what you said, there are we're not as secure as we think we are. And so I think that's good for Queen Sugar to deal with that issue, so it stays fresh in people's memory, stays in their mind, so they can be prepared.
Exactly.
Yeah, this show's like a little time capsule. If you wanted to show future generations what it was like to live through this, like they could literally watch this season and understand the emotions. So in that, like how you said, memorializing this moment in time, it really is doing that to the T.
Even I thought it was funny too when they were going to show Micah, because the children, the children was like, COVID, what?
You see, he was trying to bounce.
Yep, I seen the shark. Charlie was like, "You trying to go see who? What? No, you're not going to see no friends."
Charlie was me. I can relate to that. That conversation was happening in my house. Like, what?
Trust and believe. I had that same conversation. I mean, but then what do you do? Because they are young, and there has to be some sort of give and take.
Balance.
Yeah, there has to be. So, and after about 6 weeks, my son particularly, he was, bouncing.
Oh, my son too.
Yeah.
My son too.
And I feel bad for Micah, especially because we know in real life how long this drags on. And being in college is supposed to be the best time of your life. Like, you are truly missing out on the connections, on networking, on making friends, on learning who you are as an adult, who you're going to be. Like, college really helps shape that experience. And to have to do that, I'm sure he's going to end up having to do it virtually. It's not the same. You don't get those same social interactions. You don't get into those situations where you're on campus and you go to the parties or to the different social clubs and whatnot. You don't get that.
Well, my son.
So I'm feeling for Micah.
Yeah, my son's in college right now, and guess what? They're studying virtually. I think that he has one class where they actually meet, and he can't leave his dorm, so he can't even go out and be amongst other college students. They're all contained in whatever dorm they're in, and they're taking tests, COVID tests, 3 times a week. So, and as I talk to him on occasions, I'm beginning to see how it's affecting him, and I can see Micah going through that same thing. At a point when it's almost a point of no return for young folk, because what have they been doing their whole life? But then the irony of it, though, you would think if anybody could deal with it would be young folks, because they live on this.
The TikTok challenges is coming. If they don't capture all the TikTok moments.
I mean, when we were growing up, or at least when I was growing up, if something like that had happened, just go ahead and dig a 6-foot hole in the backyard, because you killed me. But with the advent of this thing, and when you see young kids, all they're doing is that. So you would think if anybody can deal with it, it should be them, because they've already established a form of communication with their cell phones.
Well, I guess that's the bright side of the situation is, even seeing Micah glued to the phone, talking to his new thing.
That's the other thing.
That's
we saw that coming.
Yeah,
we saw it. We knew last week that he was going to get dumped.
Yeah, Kiki knew too much about the other guy, right?
Yeah, that was details. Yeah.
Well, hey, it happens,
Well, he seemed to be rebounding already, because he already talking to somebody else.
Yep. I was about to say, that's one thing this pandemic might do, is help keep him, with this one girl. He can't go out and find a new one.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So one thing I thought was funny too, was Charlie, in her situation. She was, even as she was in the house with Micah, she was wearing her mask. I feel like Charlie had her mask on this whole episode.
She was playing, both of them had their mask on.
Yep. And it was really funny to me when she was doing her Zoom call with the rest of the leaders on the board, and she was wearing her suit jacket up top and her pajama bottoms down low. And so I was like, if that's not the truth.
That is the truth. Yep. Yep.
I can't contest that. So, hey. When I get dressed, I get dressed. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's another story.
I thought it was interesting that the other board member felt that it was okay to, call Charlie out about Unvi's restaurant and about her having activity going on there. I thought that was, I mean, he was definitely trying to throw it in her face, like she was basically allowing her family to operate, but nobody else. And we know that wasn't the case.
Ain't that just like a brother from another mother? I mean, I hope Charlie really checks him because, for whatever reason, why is he so hard on Charlie? What has Charlie done to him? But no, I just, probably the board is probably majority white. And, I hate to put it that way, and I hope that it's not that way. But, this going after Charlie, that ain't the right thing because when she checks him, she's going to check him hard.
Well, I guess the thing about this situation that's going on is, everybody was so worried about being put out of work due to the road coming into town. And now COVID is wreaking havoc either way. So it's like that whole situation with the road and it either going through the town on the farms or going through the graveyard. That's an afterthought now. Everybody's mind is focused on COVID and this whole situation. So I thought it was really thoughtful of Aunt Vi, Hollywood, and Nova and Calvin to team up to deliver those care packages to the community. I definitely seen a lot of that going on early on, and so it's good that they are pulling together their resources to help out. But Hollywood and his situation with his mom. So that's I'm worried about this, because we heard her coughing on the FaceTime call, and I was just like, okay, just like I mentioned last week when COVID was first ramping up, any little cough or anything, everybody was like, stay away from me.
Right.
And so I think Hollywood has, good reason to be concerned. And he sent his mom's friend over to check on her, and she was a little lethargic. So I was like, this don't seem like it's going to end well.
Yeah, and and what's his name? Prosper.
Yeah.
Prosper. He was watching too much of the TV. Like you can see that he was getting, the
anxiety
and anxiety. He's lonely, probably not able to be near his family and grandkids and stuff. I mean, that's depressing.
It is. And to think of, like, if you're that age, you're up in age anyways, and if they're telling you have to quarantine, you're on lockdown, you can't really leave your home, like these are possibly like the last few years of your life, and this is how you have to spend them. Like it is daunting.
Yeah. It's just not good to watch that, and I guess it's showing the impact of that for people who watched it 24/7, and who didn't leave the house because people who were out, you could see that you had to be careful, but life was still going on. So yeah, I like that about this, that it's showing everybody's response because everybody reacted to it differently, and I think this episode is really capturing that.
Yeah, the only two that seem to be having a good time are Nova and Calvin.
Right.
That's momentarily. That's momentarily because we saw the previews. With the kids, that situation is getting ready to be a little rocky anyway because that whole integration with the kids is gonna be a problem.
Yes, it's only a matter of time before they are at each other's necks.
Not the children.
But I did appreciate Nova and how she was so concerned for Prosper and his mental stability during these times. She really had to go out of her way to pull him out of that depression, and it seemed like her asking him for a comment for her piece that she's writing, it seemed like that kind of cheered him up and helped him to focus his attention elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And
that was a good way to draw him out.
I thought so too.
That was really smart.
That's extremely smart. And because that you gotta, particularly at a certain age, you gotta stay active physically and mentally. Because I tell you, old age will catch up on you real quick. When you start to settle down, it'll hit you like a brick. And I could really feel his, the depression setting in with him. And I thought Nova was, her character was, pristine in the sense that, he literally kicked her out of his house, but she didn't look at that negatively. She was able to, swallow that and then come back with something that mostly positively affected Prosper, hopefully.
But that's because sometimes when older people are getting older, you know, they still want to have that sense of independence.
Yeah.
And I noticed that even with family, like when at certain age, like if you treat them in a way that they feel like they don't want to be a burden, and then they don't want to be made to feel like they can't do things. Mm-hmm. So if you present in a way like Nova did, like, I need your help with something where they can still feel useful and feel independent, then you can draw them out. You start treating them like, oh, I can do this for you, then they'll start getting prickly.
Yeah, because you start to treat them like children all over again.
Yeah, and they don't like it.
No,
they don't like it.
Yeah. So I definitely hope that this ends well for Prosper. Like, it was looking bleak for him because last week we was like, Prosper, they already seemed like they was about to take him out with the COVID, but it seems like he might be the one that comes out, at the end of this, because he's a staple in this show. He's one of the last few people that really can help outside of, Vibe, but help them connect, their history, their family history together with what they've learned from their father.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that he is a staple on the show. He has to stick around.
I wish somebody could take him in.
I thought about that, and I thought would Nova and Calvin do it, because they seem to be, very concerned about him. And I thought that phone call that Nova made might be that phone call that says, "Hey, come on and come to us and let us,
But would he go? Because the other thing is, that some older people were very, I think, protective and would probably want to stay on their own because they wouldn't want to be exposed to people who may be going in and out.
Right. Or
other people.
I agree with you. And I think when, some place where I would say Charlie, but Micah in and out. Yeah. And then young people. So I'm like, some place where, look, maybe even with Aunt Vi in Hollywood, because that way, like, there's no kids running in and out or whatever. I mean, I don't know.
My dad was like that, before he passed. He stayed with me for 2 years and treated like a king. But 2 years later, he was like, I got to go home. He wanted to go back to that house, nobody there, and that's what he wanted to do. And as much as I fought, trying to keep him, I had to realize, he has his own life. And if that's what he wants to do, then I'll just make adjustments to, try to cater in that regard, So, but yeah, I could feel it. I could feel it with Prosper. So
listen,
so you're right.
I speak from experience. My dad lives out of state and stuff, and I was trying to talk to him about Instacart, and he was like, I got it. No. Okay. All right. You got it.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed this episode. I do think that it's going to continue on the COVID path. Do you guys have any predictions you want to throw out there, or any comments about the episode in general?
I think that I hate to say it, but I think Hollywood's mom is, she's gonna bite that bullet.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I'm really hoping, but there's something in me that says Prosper he may get it. I know what you said, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But remember, the show has to have some bite to it. And that would be a big chunk out of the programming, So,
well, we had the antagonist, what's her name? Amira Van's character.
Yeah.
Parker.
Parker. But
So whenever she comes back, she'll bring some drama to the situation, I'm sure.
yeah, but the problem is if they're going on the line of COVID, she's not going to be back for some time. You know,
Well,
and
I
even
feel
when
like
she
she would
does
be
come back,
somebody that might challenge Charlie's decisions.
yeah, but even when she does come back, what are they going to do? Fight over Zoom, I suppose. But other than that, so I would hate to see Prosper go, but something's telling me that, and if it's not COVID, it could be depression.
Yeah.
This is what I would like to see. You know, COVID has been a time where either some people made it, but some people thrived. And so what we normally see about the Bordelons is they figure a way out. So this is the time you can see Darla come up with some business or some idea to help get them through. So I'm hoping to see that the community come together and create something out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting hearing them talk about, waiting for the small business relief, the economic aid, because I'm like, that's so relevant for the news right now, people seeking a different aid, and they're touching on a lot of ongoing themes right now, education, job loss and stuff, and survival of the fittest with the couples. We'll see who's going to survive, even with, because sometimes with couples, financial strains can cause discord in relationships and they may not make it. So I'm hoping that Darla and Ralph Angel are able to hang in there, because right now there's a financial strain, or it's gonna be, even though he's gonna start the other job and everything. Will it be enough, or will it,
and I was going to mention that earlier, but what I really, really like with Ralph Angel and Darla, Ralph Angel has grown up 110%.
Oh, he has.
And what he has been able to, digest in terms of what's going on, what he needs to do, and that he will do anything for his family. Now that's a man.
Yes, he's doing his thing this week.
And
to touch on what you said, Tiffany, about like how the show was touching on all these different aspects of reality. Even Charlie, she had a moment where she mentioned how the hospitals were overwhelmed and they were still not providing funding. So it's like, well, what do you do? And she talked about how they were setting up shop in the parking lots. And so I was like, this is it. I mean, this is living it really and truly all over again. And then to touch on the Ralph Angel situation, I worry for him. So this is my prediction. I think that this job that he's taking at the nursing home, while I applaud him for doing what he has to do for his family and buckling down and taking the job that most people would consider undesirable, is very commendable. But so we know how hard the nursing homes got hit.
Yeah.
And how many elderly people passed because of it in those nursing homes. And so I'm just worried about how him taking a job on the front lines and seeing that stuff every day and having to deal with the ugly realities of what was going on in those nursing homes, how that's going to affect him on top of, the financial strains already impacting his household.
So I got it. So he'll come down with COVID. Of course, he'll survive. He's a young man, but maybe they'll write something about that, and then, and see how they handle that, because you got Blue in there. You got, he wants to protect his son and his wife. So he may be the one that comes down, because if he's dealing with the trash and all that other stuff, he's dealing with that virus, right up front. So that could be one of the write-ins,
Yeah, or he might be exposed and then have to quarantine and be away from them. That could be a possible storyline, because that happens. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
I was going to say, one of the things that I was thinking too with that is that, working in a nursing home, you start becoming close to the patients and everything like that. And then if you lose them, then that's disheartening too, because I'm thinking, because my aunt was a nurse, she just retired, and she was talking about you know, during the time that she was working and everything, and she was attached to some of the patients. And then, you know, it was 1 week that she wasn't there. And then when she came back, like 3 of the patients that she was really attached to had passed from COVID
Oh, wow.
and stuff too. So I think about that with Ralph Angel working there and, you know, getting to know the patients and folks and stuff. And then, you know, something tragic like that happening.
Yeah. So I just feel like, you know, we so worried about the old people, but they got to show how it affects the young people. You know, a lot of people
Yes.
lost their sense of taste, their organs were damaged permanently. Like a lot of stuff went on that permanently changed a lot of people's lives. So they got to show both sides of it.
Listen, I have family members that are not elderly and they got contracted COVID. And while they're negative now, they still have lingering symptoms from it.
Mhm.
So, you know, it doesn't just affect elderly people.
Yeah. So I'm interested in seeing how the rest of this plays out, but I do hope that COVID will be a little bit less of the storyline going forward because it's a lot to relive. So
Right.
while I'm
Because
glad that they're talking about it, and I'm glad that they are doing a really good job at, you know, memorializing that moment. I do think that it becomes a lot to, you know, continue to, you know, carry the show on with. So I hope that the storyline does switch up at least in, if not next week or in at least by mid-season. I hope that they pivot. So we'll see. Do you guys have any other remarks you want to make before we close out?
I'm good.
No. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We will definitely be back next week to discuss episode 4 of Queen Sugar, season 5. Please go down in the comments and let us know what you thought about this episode. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And also click the notification bell so you get alerted whenever we post. We are also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The Spot Real Talk. So make sure you go and follow us, and we will definitely give you a follow back. And if nobody else, anything else to add, then I think we'll call it a night.
I'm good.
For watching. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Today I'ma wake up a new man, driving a new road, develop a new plan. I'll never be blue, man, whatever the view, man. Go to a new beach, get me a